What's going on, YouTube? This is Luke with Endless Entrepreneurs, just coming to you guys with another video here on a Wednesday night. Getting more of a normal content creation schedule here. Thor found his way upstairs, my fearless golden retriever, if you can see him here. He's always good for the views. But per the title of the video, we are going to talk about how long is too long to hold inventory for your reselling business, specifically eBay and Poshmark, since those are what I sell on. If you are new to my channel, I am a part-time reseller. I call myself part-time on eBay and Poshmark. I also invest in real estate. I have a rental property, and I work full-time in the corporate world. So kind of juggle all three. I say part-time loosely with eBay because I have a fairly large eBay business. I buy and sell mainly liquidation now. I still operate out of my house, so definitely a part-time basis. People are starting to fill in now. This is watching later and you see me interacting with people. It's because it was live at one point in time and I was taking questions. I will do some Q&A at the end, and maybe Thor will make another guest appearance as we go, since I know that people have been asking for him for a while. So I'm just gonna jump right in because this is an interesting topic for me. And I've gone back and forth on it probably over the last couple of years on what's right and what's not right. And I really broke it down to a couple main questions you have to answer before you know for you personally in your business when it is the right time. But let's back up first and just talk about, like, in general, why people start to think about getting rid of old inventory. I think one of the big reasons, number one, is it's not selling, right? You've had something for a long time and you think, so maybe did you make a bad buy, right? That could be one of the made a bad buy. Another issue could be that maybe it's not the right season for it. Another issue could be maybe your pricing is wrong. Another issue could be that your pictures are bad or your descriptions are bad, or maybe your sizing is wrong. There's a mistake in listing. There's all these variables that can come down to why did something not sell? Why is it sat around long? And I think it's important to kind of have your checklist first of what things you can fix before you think about liquidating. So I always encourage everyone to go through kind of that checklist of, like, is my listing right? Is it tailored towards my audience? Is the pictures clear? Are the descriptions right? Are all the sizing and little details right? Those things are really important to consider before you even think about liquidating. But with that out of the way, then it gets down to, what is your business model? And I think that not enough people put thought into that before making a decision. I think a lot of people abandon inventory too soon. They price it down to get it out and move it. And I think you really, really need to put some serious thought into what is your long-term business model. So I'm going to speak to mine personally, and that's probably how I'm going to refer to us out for a while of the video. But I will touch on other business models and where it makes sense to do something different, in my opinion. Now, granted, I'm far from an expert, but I do sell a pretty solid volume. I'll probably hit 100,000 in gross sales this year on eBay. I don't say that to brag. I just say that to add some credibility to what I'm about to say. I've made a ton of mistakes growing to this size. It's been a long journey, and probably a lot longer than it should have been. There's a lot of people who have grown a lot faster than I have, but I've definitely learned from my mistakes. I'm hoping this will add some value to people. So my model is, in general, is I have a very strong buy and hold mentality. Not even just for my reselling business. I use the same for real estate, same for investing in general. That's just, I have a mindset for the long haul. I always have. I've never been, like, in a rush to make something happen. Oh, sorry, Thor. I've never been in a sprint, I guess I could say. The get rich quick stuff never has really appealed to me. I love to build things. That's, like, innately built into me. I like watching things grow steadily. So I have a very much buy and hold mentality, which for me means I probably keep inventory a lot longer than most people do. Diving into that model a little more is, I like to price, and this is really important for your model and whether you've kept inventory too long. I like to price high. When I factor in my model of, like, I have to have it photographed, I have to have it listed, I have to store it, like, all these things and costs I put into getting the item available, I want to make sure I get a good return on the investment, the price to buy it. I don't want to just quick flip it, make a really thin margin, and it not be worth my time that was put into prepping the item. Now, that's slightly changed as I've added and hired out help. And now I'm not doing as many of the transactional things, but it hasn't altered a ton. I still price, I would say, in the upper, like, third of the market. Like if you were to go to sold listings and complete it and filter on highest plus shipping over the last like 90 days, I would say I price right in the top like 10% of pricing. Usually I start there. That's just what I do. To me, it's worth it. If it takes 3 times as long to sell, but I get that price for it, I don't have storage issues. So like I'm not hurting my business or missing out on opportunities because I'm holding inventory too long. Sorry about that, yawn, guys. Whew. I've had a couple late nights with the day job, so I'm just catching up on me. But I think and that really is a perfect segue to the next question you have to consider is holding the inventory preventing you from other opportunities? And that comes down to opportunity cost, which is just a huge thing in business in general. Is, what are you trading off by holding on the inventory? So in my current model, I don't have an issue with space for storage, so I'm not trading off on space. I personally don't have much of a capital issue because I work full time, so I reinvest all of my business. Granted, definitely cash flow has changed now that I have like a set burn rate for contractors and all that stuff. I have a set amount of money that goes out the door every month that's a lot higher than it ever has been. But even with that, cash flow is not really preventing you from making too many buying decisions unless you're considering like buying a tractor trailer load or something, which I don't have the room for something like that. And I'm not trying to get to there yet. It's a goal eventually, but so, when I take those factors in, for me, I end up holding inventory for items that have sold as recently this week that I've had for 2 years. And I bought them at a thrift store for less than $4 2 years ago. I've incurred $2.40 of 24 months worth of listing fees, let's say, just for a round number. I listed it myself over 2 years ago, and it's selling for $20 or $30 sometimes higher. I had a suit that sold for $60 that I've had for I think over 2 years, sold last night. So to me, that ROI is worth it. It's not taking up space. It's building my business still. I'm putting value in my business by holding it there. So that's one side of the coin. That's one model. The other really important question is, what is your investment into the original inventory? So, and someone just asked in the chat, that's really funny. They asked if 3 years is too long. We have the same issue. I think the investment into the item matters too. So I have a tendency on items that I have very little investment into, I tend to hold those longer than others. And I don't have a ton of rationale for it, other than I don't feel like I have to get my money back mentally. Whereas like if I'm gonna pay up for an item, like I bought some things off Blue Lots before, I bought some higher end stuff, or I flipped stuff from Marshalls. Like if I was gonna go out and do like retail arbitrage, and I'm spending 20 to make 60, like I want to flip it a little faster than 2 years. And I think it just has to do mentally with the capital outlay and what I'm getting back. I feel like that's just a bad business decision to put that type of capital into one item and wait that long to get it back. Whereas if I put $4 into something, I know that I can get 54 over the next 2 or 3 years. That return is drastically different, 4 into 50 from 20 into 60. Like the math on that would be 4 into 12 if we did the multiples there to equate to that 20 into 60. Granted, the net profit is much higher on the 20 into 60, most likely, than the 4 into 12. But to me, in my head, in the way I think about investing capital in my business, holding that $4 piece of inventory longer than the 20 just makes more business sense to me. And I could be way wrong, and people can jump in the chat. I love to hear people's perspectives. That's just how my mind works. So kind of touched on your model being the first thing to evaluate. Backing up even before that, checking your listing to make sure that you've checked all those boxes. There's not something you can correct that's preventing it from selling. Kind of taking that box of what's your investment. And then I think you get to the question of, was it just a bad buy? And this is like its own separate category when it comes to deciding when to liquidate. If it's just a bad buy, maybe you were early on in your reseller career. You were just learning. You picked up something that was dated. You watch an old YouTube video from 3 years ago. Whoever it was said this brand was amazing, and it was 3 years ago. You didn't notice the timestamp. You went out and bought it, and maybe it's outdated now, and it was just a bad buy. In that case, I'm in favor of getting rid of it as quickly as possible, because you're incurring fees every single month that you're never going to recoup because it was a bad buy. So at that point, it's a sunk cost, meaning you already made the investment. You're not going to get it back. Just get rid of it so you're not incurring future costs. That category, I say liquidate as soon as possible. I've had bad buys where I've liquidated in less than 6 months, realizing this was just stupid. I don't know why I bought this, or had a flaw that I didn't see, or like, oh yeah, haven't yelled like this in a while. CrossFit was a bit of a bear tonight too, so I was probably playing a little bit into it. Get some water 1 second. So that, I mean, that's a category all to itself. It's just those bad buys, getting rid of them. So let's put that in a corner because I don't think it's relevant to what we're going to dive into next. And that's talking about your cash flow. And so I already talked about the cash flow is not an issue for me because of my situation. But cash flow in general should be driving the majority of your decision to liquidate inventory for a couple of reasons. One, going back to opportunity costs. If not having the right cash flow is preventing you from making even better buying decisions and growing your business because you held something too long, that's a definite sign that you need to get rid of that inventory and get some money back for it, right? Even if it's just 2 times your money. If you bought it and you thought you're going to get 8 times your money and you've had it for 2 years, but you have this great buying opportunity coming up, or maybe you're not able to go thrift because you're waiting for more cash flow to come through. To me, that's a time to look at that old inventory and be like, you know what? Let me get 2x my money back. I paid for it 2 years ago, so it's going to feel like getting 100% of it right now. So even if I bought it for 4, I thought I could sell it for 30. If I sell it for 15 this week, that's $15 I can reinvest into inventory that I probably can do 4 into 30 or 4 into 50 or whatever your multiple is there. I think that's a very legitimate reason why you should liquidate inventory is when you need capital. And when you think about that, it's like there are categories of inventory that I think you go to first, right? I think it always makes sense to liquidate that $25 average sale price item down to 15 than it does to liquidate the $100 suit that's just waiting for the right buyer and you knew it was waiting for the right buyer, and then you liquidate that. Like, I would much rather do that kind of bread and butter, middle of the road items that have taken forever to sell. Liquidate those first because that makes more sense to get that capital in and push that back in your business. You intentionally buy these home run items knowing you might have to sit on them for a long time, and that's okay. But those are the big boosts to your bottom line when those sell. And those sometimes take waiting for the right buyer. And I'm speaking just for apparel. I'm sure there's other niches where this makes sense too. But from an apparel perspective, which is what I know, that's how I view that. So cash flow, huge, huge, huge indicator in when you should liquidate. And then, really rounding out the discussion is, when does space become an issue? Because this is the other biggie that people, they really run into log jams, especially being like a seller out of your own home, which I would say the large majority of us are. And you run out of room. You run out, your bedrooms get full, your garage gets full, your attic gets full. And then what do? Right? Are you going to stop buying stuff till it sells? Or are you going to look at the bottom end of your inventory and say, all right, let me make some room by getting rid of that bottom 15% so that I can add in some much better buying decisions? And I think space can quickly become like an easy way to make a decision to liquidate. Especially if you have like Chris from Daily Refinement has a great situation where I know he's growing a lot right now and looking at commercial spaces, but for a long time, he had an exact amount of space in his garage. He knew to the unit how many units he could fit in there. So if he hit capacity at any point in time, it would probably be very easy for him to look at the bottom half of his inventory, bottom third or bottom quarter, and be like, hey, boom, let me get rid of this because I have better stuff coming in. That can happen quickly, can make a lot of sense. Again, mirroring to my situation, I'm not running out of space anytime soon. I just added a 10 by 12 shed in my backyard. That's not even halfway full. My garage is kind of a mess, so that's going to move over. I've got an attic up here. I've got the room you see behind me. There's only 2 shelving units here. I can probably fit like 8 to 10 more in this room. I'm just using this room for accessories because they're not very heavy and it's on the 2nd floor, so I don't mind carrying the bins. But there's just not, I bet you I can triple my inventory size within the space here. So I have plenty of room, so that's never going to be a concern for me. But I think that's going to be a concern for a lot of people when they're deciding when to liquidate. So we just kind of ran through all the conditions, right, of when, like how to determine if it's time. And when I say liquidate, I just mean sell for less than you're expecting. Like that's really, I guess I should define that early on. when I say liquidate, it's how do I move this quickly and just get some money back? Like that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to, instead of waiting on it, how can I expedite the selling of this item to move it out of my space to get some money back and be done with it? So now the second half of the equation is how do I liquidate it, right? And I think that there's a lot of options here. I'm going to speak to eBay as a platform because I think that it's just an easy one for me to relate to, and I think it's transferable across most platforms in general. Although I will say that the auction feature of eBay definitely makes it much easier to liquidate than some other platforms. But let's just talk through the different options here. So I'm going to start with one that probably not a lot of people have thought about, and the only reason I think about it is because I've been on the receiving end of the liquidation. Is there are tons of, like, maybe you've made a ton of buys that are actually pretty solid, but you just need, like, they're like a 4 and a 20, they're kind of running bread and butter, whatever, and you just want to get rid of them because you're switching your model, whatever the reason is. You can bulk sell it locally, right? Or to other resellers. I probably a dozen resellers I've bought anywhere from 200 items to 1,000 items from them that they're just getting rid of. Maybe they're moving to a different niche. Maybe they just were getting rid of that inventory. So we're getting completely out of it, which is fine. Some of them just are trying to get rid of a category item they didn't want to sell anymore. But in either case, there are other resellers that if you have the brands that they're looking for, selling them at a discount, they're going to be interested in that. So I think that's definitely an option. And kind of paring down on that is lotting some of the items together on eBay or these platforms itself. So maybe you have 10 XL dress shirts, right? Let's just use dress shirts for example. All various brands, but they're all XLs. Maybe instead of having them listed individually, you just lot them all together, right? So maybe they're all listed for 15 bucks a piece. Maybe you throw all 10 together and you list them for 80 bucks, so $8 a piece. So you cut it in half, but it's a quick 80 bucks when it sells. It's going to be a bundled shipping cost to one person, so you're reducing your cost there. And that's a way to kind of liquidate a smaller chunk of your inventory, still keep your ROI up a little bit, expedite the sale of it, and another way you can strategically liquidate without like just going to fire sale mode. So there's two options. Third option, which is kind of classic for eBay, and I see a lot of people do, is they just straight start auctioning stuff. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm a traditional buy it now seller. I set it for a price. I always do best offer because I just like to get offers. It keeps me engaged throughout the day. And that is what it is. The price doesn't change unless I change it. The auction never ends. I mean, the listing never ends. It's just in perpetuity until it sells. Now, with auction, it's a set amount of time. You set a starting price. People can bid on it. They can get in the bidding wars. But no matter what, at the end of that 7-day or 5-day or 3-day period you set, the auction's over. And if there's a single bid on it, item sells, and you are obligated to fulfill that order for the price or the last bid. Great method to liquidate. I've done it many times myself, especially towards year end when I'm trying to clean up my inventory and get my inventory counts for my accountant and all that stuff. Makes sense totally to start liquidating some of that way. It kind of guarantees you're going to sell it, right? You might have to run the auctions, 4 or 5 weeks in a row just to get rid of all of it. But eventually, over a month period, if you run 4 7-day auctions, you usually can get rid of everything as long as the starting price is fairly competitive. And what I mean fairly competitive is, like, I just set like 40 or maybe 50 auctions live tonight. I haven't done it in a while. Just went through some really, really old stuff that was just, the picture quality wasn't what is up to my standards anymore. I didn't feel like rephotoing them. I mean, there's just a lot of variables, but I sent them live. And I started all my blazers at $9.99 because I'm liquidating some of those. There's old ones, $9.99 plus shipping. So if you're in a single bid, I'm getting $15, $16, $17 for it back, which I paid $5 at some point. A long, long time ago. And these are all stuff that was 2 years plus. Dress shirts, I'm starting at $3.99 with plus shipping. So a single bid's getting me to like $10 for the dress shirt. That's, like, to me, a reasonable starting point. But the thing that people don't think about when they auction, and I see this all the time, I see posts from people. I've talked to other resellers. I remember when Chris did it a couple of years ago. I say a couple of years, yeah, I guess it was like 2 years ago. They'll set 100 or 150 things live at auction, all going to end the same day. And what they haven't thought through is, even if a fourth of them sell, right? Or half of, let's just say half of them sell. Let's just say you price them at half of them sell. you now have 75 items you have to ship in a day. Like if your handling time is a day. The amount of time it takes to ship 75 items is very excessive, and usually no one's ever planning on that. Like no one's thinking that through until you get to like day 5 of your auctions. You go, oh, that's like 30 live bids. Oh crap, I'm gonna have to ship all that. And then the worst thing is when you don't end them on a weekend, you don't even get that extra buffer or time to do it. You're like scrambling on a weeknight trying to ship them. And I've made all these mistakes. So I highly recommend, if you're going to do auctions to liquidate, really a good strategy is, say you wanted to get rid of 100 items, phase them into like groups of 20 over 5 days and set them live 20 live every day. So they're ending different days. You're not overwhelmed. Also keep your store, engagement well, the viewership well on it. eBay definitely views it well, having live auctions mixed in with your store. Be strategic and thoughtful about it so you don't crush yourself on the back end. And it looks like my friend Steve Rakin just jumped in the chat. Rakin Profit, how you doing, man? I haven't chatted with you in a while, but I see you're making big moves. If anyone isn't familiar, which I would be shocked if you're not familiar with Steve Rakin, he has an awesome channel, Rakin Profit. Definitely should go check it out. Amazing reselling content, amazing motivational content, just in general, Steve. Steve's crushing the fitness game right now. He is in incredible shape. I think the last time I saw you, Steve, was in Austin for, I think, Green Room Meetup like 2 years ago. Hoping this year is the year to make it back out to it, by the way. We'll have to connect on that here in a little bit. But yeah, definitely recommend. Quick plug for Steve, because he's been a great friend, even a mentor when it comes to YouTube. He's the reason I got into selling clothing. I know I've said a couple other videos. Steve's first video, like 2000, maybe 13 or 14, I think, is when I found your video, Steve, and he's the reason I still sell clothing. So big shout out to him. So, with auctions, it's kind of getting back to auctions, be very strategic about how you set them live, because you really can end up crushing yourself on the back end and all the overhead that it takes to, ship and handle that. And then even on top of that, I get a zillion questions. It's crazy. Auction buyers end up being some of the pickiest buyers. It's like, because they're already looking for a great deal, right? They're already like that thrifty person looking for the absolute best deal. And then they have 1,000 questions about the item. It's like, you're getting a discount, just chill. But it's like, those are so many questions you got to answer. So you just got to think through that stuff when it comes to looking. I still think auctions are a great way. Like I said, I set like 60 live tonight. I think it's a good way to clean up inventory, especially at year end when you're trying to get your inventory straight for accounting purposes. It's just a really easy way to clean out and clean up your inventory. And then the last real way, which is, I think should be a resort you go to before you go to the auction, is reduce your pricing. Like, drop your pricing by a third, where you're still making 2x your money, maybe 3x your money, but you're not at the top of the market anymore. Maybe you're not even in the middle of the market. Maybe you're a little below the middle of the market. See if that can help jumpstart it over a couple of weeks span. I think that reducing pricing is a really great way to go with that. Also, it'll be interesting to see. I kind of have like a question mark one written down here. So as eBay's piloting this whole extending offers to watchers, like Poshmark, basically they're adopting what Poshmark did. Obviously, which is a great idea. And Poshmark, if you're not familiar with it, if someone likes your item, you can then send them an offer. So instead of them offering you a price, you can send them an offer. eBay's piloting something similar. I know some of you probably have access to do that. Some of you don't. I've been checking them out, and I haven't seen the ability to, but I honestly haven't spent any time really trying. And I need to get caught up on my eBay news, so I don't really want to speak to too much of their changes because I haven't really read up on them. I've just been kind of head down. So I need to get my head straight with those. I am hoping, by the way, that they get their third-party plugin for staff accounts for eBay. That would be amazing. I love InkFrog, but it would be very, very wonderful if eBay had the capability to manage that. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I mean, we're at the 24-minute mark. I want to leave the last 5 or 6 minutes for some Q&A. All in all, kind of summarizing, like, just make sure your listings hit all those check boxes of a quality listing before you think about liquidating. Then evaluate your business model to see what the right time frame is to start liquidating, and then think about the opportunity costs that come with holding it versus liquidating it. And then we just went through kind of some options on how you can liquidate. So hopefully this gave a little bit of value and context. I think this is the right time of year to have this discussion for sure. So I'm going to take some questions. I see Brian's asking in the chat, are you using promoted listings? What's your strategy? That's a great question. So when promoted listings, I'm going to back up. When promoted listings first came out, oh gosh, how long ago was it? Was it a year and a half ago or so? I guess 2 years maybe. I kind of played around with it, different levels, trending rates, individual rates. I love the analytics tool of the, kind of visibility, the click-throughs, or not click-throughs, but the clicks of your actual listings. I think it's all a very good tool. What I've been reluctant on with going all in on it is that, well, one, I think that for used items, it's just not as effective. I think for new items, it's kind of a must for a lot of areas. However, it just depends how competitive the market is for the items you're selling. Like if I was in like the electronic space selling new electronics, I would be using them like crazy because the competition is enormous. Whereas in the clothing market, it's a really interesting market because you need such a unique buyer. Like you really do. You need such a unique buyer because you need brand, style, color, material content, measurements. Like the whole thing's got to be right for them. Like you need the whole equation's got to be right for them coming in. And there's so many variations of the same product you're selling that might not meet them. So visibility is always good, which is why I like promoted listings because it's giving you better visibility. At the end of the day, it's giving you better visibility. Sometimes it's duplicative, sometimes it's not very strategic, but it is. But I think you have to be very careful of your bottom line. And I haven't really directly answered your question. So yes, I use. Sorry, I'm not really dodging it. I just was kind of on a tangent there. So yes, I use them. I use them for a lot of my new items, and I use them primarily for multi-quantity new items. I try not to use them for single SKU stuff. So Aaron just asked, what are your big winter active plans? So Aaron, I'm going to assume this is on a personal note question, not a business note. I'll answer both either way because that sounds fun. So on a personal note, actually, this is going to be the first year we are not traveling home for Thanksgiving or Christmas. And when I say home, I mean upstate New York. It's like a 10-hour drive for me. We decided that we said a little while ago that we're not making the trip. We've just been traveling a ton this year. I started a new role, a full-time role. I switched from being a contractor to doing a full-time role at the company I was contracting for. And so I'm kind of new there, and so it just felt wrong to take off a lot of time. So there's a lot of variables to it, but so we're gonna stay put here. So which means that our active plans really just include probably just CrossFit. I'd love to ski. I haven't skied in many, many years. I'd love to get back out and ski. Probably play quite a bit of basketball. And this is Thor's favorite weather, my golden retriever. So we'll probably do some hiking and outdoor stuff. We tend to do a lot more outdoor stuff in the winter because he doesn't die. And then the other exciting thing that we've been planning for a little while now is Thor is kind of a lonely, not independent dog. So we've got a puppy coming soon, Saturday actually. We pick him up. It's been planned for a while now. So we're getting, he's going to be like 6 weeks old on Saturday. So it'll be lots of pictures to come. I think Shannon's already started Instagram for both of them. So there will be plenty of puppies pictures to see if that's something that interests you. So we will be pretty gridlocked with the puppy as well. As far as business goes, my big plans really are just continuing to do exactly what I'm doing. Buying listing 3 to 4 times more items than I'm selling every month, continuing to rapidly grow my business, refining my processes. Every month I'm changing something a little bit to add more time back into my schedule. I just want to keep pushing myself to do that. And really, I really just want to close this selfishly, and it's such an arbitrary goal. It really doesn't matter that much, but I really want to hit the 100K sales mark. That was my goal last year by myself without any help. And I realized that, part-time was just a really tough thing to do, especially with my job last year got really crazy. This year, I just really want to hit it, just like a moral victory. So hopefully I'll get that this winter. We'll hit the new year and have that. Brian said staff accounts I heard are coming first quarter 2020. Yeah, I heard that. I mean, that's what I've heard too. I never hold my breath when they say something's coming. I know that eventually it will. It's hard for me to believe that they're going to say quarter 1 and deliver on quarter 1 just on track history. But you could be wrong. But yeah, we're excited about the puppies in the chat. So Thor is not a very independent dog. So if we're not throwing the ball with him, we're not being super active with him. He just he just doesn't do anything. And so we're really hoping that corrects it for him, gives him a little buddy. Anytime he's around other Goldens, he's absolutely has a blast. So we're thinking that's going to correct it. Honestly, I'm not looking forward to the puppy stage at all. I don't think either Shannon or I are. But we wanted to make sure their ages were far enough apart, and that that helped. So, any other questions coming through? If not, I'm going to wrap up, guys. It is 11:15 for me, and I still have to ship some things. So not many. I think 11 or 12. It's been a weird sales day today. Weekend was crazy. I think I shipped 48 things today. All right, I don't see any other questions rolling in, guys. So really appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully you guys found this valuable. As always, drop comments. I think I just got back to all the comments from my last video, answer those questions. You definitely can message me on Instagram, Endless Entrepreneurs. I get back to direct message on Instagram. I answer the fastest, without a doubt. But I will answer any comments you drop below. I do appreciate all the questions and feedback if you have other input or ideas. It is really nice for me to see other people's takes. I've learned just as much from you guys and other people in the reseller community. I mean, Steve's a perfect example then, even for myself. So, I mean, that's kind of a give and take. And if you don't mind, hit that like button, share the video with somebody you think would be helpful to. That would mean a lot to me. I would appreciate it. Have an awesome night, guys, and thanks for tuning in. See you.